My grandson Leo called me, his voice shaking. Grandpa, I just saw Grandma at the Starlight Inn, that sleazy motel off the highway. She was with seven guys. I almost laughed. I told him he was seeing things. Why? Because my wife of 45 years, Diana, was sitting right next to me on the couch. But I wasn't laughing when I discovered the truth. The woman at that motel looked exactly like my wife, but she was part of a criminal conspiracy, a conspiracy run by my own son. If you have ever been betrayed by the one person you were supposed to trust, if you've ever felt like you were losing your mind, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching this from? My story. It's not an easy one, but it's the truth. It all started on a Friday night, a completely normal Friday night. My name is Michael Sullivan, just Mike. I'm 70 years old. For 45 years, I was a construction manager right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. That means for 45 years, I yelled at crews, read blueprints, and made sure buildings didn't fall down. I'm a practical man. I believe in concrete, I believe in steel, and I believe in what I can see right in front of my face. And what I saw in front of me was Diana, my wife of 45 years. She was 69, sitting right next to me on our old leather recliner, the one we bought back in '98. We were doing exactly what we do every single Friday night. We were watching Jeopardy! What is Ulaanbaatar? Diana said quietly to the TV. She was always good at geography. It is Ulaanbaatar, the contestant said a second later. See, Mike, I'm still sharp, she said, smiling at me. Diana. She's the model grandmother. She has that soft silver hair she keeps in a neat bun. She always smells faintly of lavender or maybe baked apples. She volunteers at the church food pantry on Tuesdays and runs the neighborhood garden club. She was the most predictable, wonderful, and decent woman I have ever known. My phone buzzed on the side table. I figured it was a spam call. It buzzed again. Mike, aren't you going to get that? Diana asked, annoyed that I was interrupting her show. I picked it up. The screen read, Leo, my grandson. Leo is 17. A good kid. He's my son Ryan's boy. He's been working extra hours doing DoorDash deliveries, trying to save up for an old truck he wants to buy. Hey, Leo, what's up, son? You know Jeopardy is on. The voice on the other end wasn't the usual cheerful kid. It was high-pitched, panicked. He was breathing hard like he'd been running. Grandpa, where are you? I'm at home, Leo. What's wrong? You sound terrible. Is Grandma there? Is Grandma with you? I frowned. What kind of question was that? Of course she is. She's right here trying to figure out who wrote Moby Dick. What's going on? That's impossible, Leo stammered. Grandpa, I swear. I just saw her. Saw her where, Leo? At the mall? No, he whispered. Grandpa, I'm on a delivery. I'm at the Starlight Inn. My blood went cold. The Starlight Inn isn't just a motel. It's a dump. It's that sleazy hourly rate motel out on Highway 27, the one with the buzzing neon sign where half the lights are burned out. It's the kind of place you go to when you're doing something you don't want anyone in the world to know about. What in God's name were you doing at the Starlight Inn? I asked, my voice rising. A delivery, Grandpa, a DoorDash delivery. But that's not... Grandpa, I saw Grandma. She was in the parking lot. She was talking to a group of men, like 7 or 8 of them. They looked tough, Grandpa. Really tough. Like bikers or something. I actually laughed. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. My Diana at the Starlight Inn. Leo, I said, trying to be patient. You are clearly overworked. You're seeing things. No, Grandpa, I swear it was her. She was wearing, I don't know, some kind of crazy coat. But it was her face I saw her. I shook my head. This was insane. I flipped my phone to the front-facing camera. Leo, look. I turned the phone toward Diana. She was looking at me confused, her glasses perched on her nose. Leo, honey. Are you okay? Diana asked, leaning toward the phone. You look pale. Leo stared at the screen. His mouth opened and closed. He looked from my wife, my real wife, back to me. But, see, son, I said, trying to end this nonsense. She's right here. Hasn't moved all night except to get more iced tea. You must have seen someone who looked like her. But Grandpa, she looked exactly like her. I mean, exactly. Leo, you're tired, I said, my patience wearing thin. Go home, get some sleep. Yeah, okay, Grandpa, he said, his voice trailing off. I'm sorry. I must be losing my mind. I'm sorry I bothered you. He hung up before I could say another word. I put the phone down. Diana chuckled, shaking her head. My goodness, the Starlight Inn. Of all places. That boy must have seen someone with my same unfortunate fashion sense. I agreed. It had to be a silly mistake. But the panic in Leo's voice, it stuck with me. It didn't feel like he thought he saw her. It felt like he knew he saw her. It was unsettling. I tried to shake it off. I had to. This was Diana, my wife. The idea was absurd. I tried to forget about it. I really did. For the next day, Saturday, I convinced myself it was just a kid's mistake. A 17-year-old hopped up on caffeine driving around in the dark. Of course he'd see things. Diana and I went about our normal Saturday routine. We went to the farmer's market. We bought tomatoes. I fixed that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom I'd been putting off for 6 months. It was normal. But that feeling, that sharp edge of panic in Leo's voice, it just wouldn't leave me. Then came Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner is mandatory in the Sullivan house. It's the one rule Diana and I enforced since our son Ryan was a kid. Now Ryan at 45 brings his own family. Ryan is different from me. I spent my life in steel-toed boots and a hard hat. Ryan spends his life in $1,000 suits and a corner office. He's a high-level financial manager for one of the big banks downtown. He's smart. God, he's smart. Always was. But he's slick, polished. Sometimes I look at him and I wonder where my kid went replaced by this CEO in training. He came in, kissed his mother on the cheek, and gave me that firm, brief handshake he must have learned in business school. Leo trailed in behind him, looking exhausted. We were all sitting at the table. Diana had made her famous pot roast. I was telling a story about the old construction days, probably one they'd all heard a dozen times. That's when Ryan turned to Leo. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a razor. I hear you called your grandparents Friday night. Ryan said, not looking at Leo, but staring at his plate. Telling them some story. Leo froze his fork halfway to his mouth. I just thought... You thought what? Ryan snapped. His eyes lifted and they were cold. I've told you, Leo. Your grandparents are retired. They don't need you bothering them with your fantasies. You're supposed to be focused on your SAT prep, not driving around all night hallucinating. Ryan, that's enough, Diana said, her voice firm but gentle. He's a good boy. It was just a simple mistake. No, Mom, it's not a simple mistake, Ryan said, turning his cold gaze on her. It's a distraction. It's disrespectful. He's 17, he needs to learn not to spread ridiculous gossip. Right, Leo? Leo just stared at his plate. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry, Grandpa. The rest of the dinner was agonizingly quiet. My gut was churning. Ryan's reaction was, it was wrong. It was completely out of proportion. This wasn't a father teaching his son a lesson. This was a man trying to silence a witness, but a witness to what my mind was racing. Why would Ryan care so much that Leo thought he saw Diana? Why was he the one reacting and not Diana herself? I looked at my wife. She was quietly eating her pot roast, her face a mask of serene calm. She didn't look like a woman who had been at the Starlight Inn. She looked like a woman who was annoyed her Sunday dinner had been spoiled. But Ryan, his reaction was the second crack in the foundation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick. 1 a.m., 1:30. Diana was sleeping peacefully beside me. Or so I thought. At maybe 2:15, I felt the mattress shift. I kept my eyes closed, breathing deep and even pretending to be asleep. I felt Diana slip out of the bed. I heard her bare feet patter softly on the hardwood floor. Where was she going? The kitchen, no. I heard the click of the master bathroom door, not closing all the way, but just enough to muffle the sound. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. I slipped out of bed. The floor was cold. I crept across the bedroom. The air was still. All I could hear was the hum of the air conditioner. I got closer to the bathroom door, and then I heard it. A whisper. It was Diana. She was on her cell phone. At 2:15 in the morning. "I know," she whispered. Her voice was different. Not my wife's voice, it was stressed. Thin. "I know, Ryan. Stop calling me about this." My heart stopped. She was talking to Ryan. He's 70 years old, Ryan. He's not stupid, but he's trusting. He won't look any deeper. A pause. She was listening. "What do you mean, he better not? Don't talk to me like that. I'm your mother." Another pause. Her tone changed. It became defensive. "It was just bad luck. How was I supposed to know the boy would be there? It's a miracle he didn't see you." "He see who?" "No," she said, her voice dropping lower. "He'll forget it. Mike. Mike thinks it was just a silly mistake. He believes me. He always believes me." A final pause. "I know. I'll make sure. Good night." I heard the click of the phone ending the call. I scrambled back to the bed, diving under the covers, my heart hammering so hard I thought she would hear it through the mattress. The bathroom door opened. I heard her sigh. A long, weary sigh. She padded back to the bed and slipped under the covers. I lay there rigid, pretending to be asleep, the smell of lavender and lies filling my lungs. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't Leo's imagination. My wife Diana, the grandmother, the gardener, the church volunteer, was lying. She was covering for our son. And they were both involved in something. Something at the Starlight Inn. Something that involved payments. My practical world of concrete and steel had just dissolved into shadows, and I realized I didn't know my wife at all. I put the phone down. Diana chuckled, shaking her head. "My goodness, the Starlight Inn. Of all places. That boy must have seen someone with my same unfortunate fashion sense." I agreed. It had to be a silly mistake. But the panic in Leo's voice, it stuck with me. It didn't feel like he thought he saw her. It felt like he knew he saw her. It was unsettling. I tried to shake it off. I had to. This was Diana, my wife. The idea was absurd. Then Sunday came. Sunday dinner is a tradition. It's not optional in the Sullivan house. It's the one rule Diana and I enforced since our son Ryan was a kid. Now Ryan at 45 brings his own family. Ryan is different from me. I spent my life in steel-toed boots and a hard hat. Ryan spends his life in $1,000 suits and a corner office. He's a high-level financial manager for one of the big banks downtown. He's smart. God, he's smart. Always was. But he's slick, polished. Sometimes I look at him and I wonder where my kid went replaced by this CEO in training. He always wears those expensive polo shirts even on a Sunday, the kind that cost more than my work boots. He came in, kissed his mother on the cheek, and gave me that firm, brief handshake he must have learned in business school. Leo, his son, trailed in behind him looking exhausted. We were all sitting at the table. Diana had just brought out her famous pot roast, the one that smells like heaven. I was telling a story about the old construction days, probably one they'd all heard a dozen times. That's when Ryan turned to Leo. He didn't even look at him. He was staring at his plate, cutting his roast beef into perfect, tiny squares. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a razor. "I hear you called your grandparents Friday night," Ryan said. Leo froze his fork halfway to his mouth. The kid looked like a deer in the headlights. I just thought—" "You thought what?" Ryan snapped. His eyes lifted and they were cold. This wasn't a father asking a question. This was an interrogation. "I've told you, Leo. Your grandparents are retired. They don't need you bothering them with your fantasies. You're supposed to be focused on your SAT prep, not driving around all night hallucinating." The table went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Diana, God bless her, immediately jumped in to smooth things over. "Oh, Ryan, that's enough," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "He's a good boy. It was just a simple mistake. He was working hard and got confused. Don't scold him at the table." I looked at Ryan, expecting him to back down to apologize. He didn't. He put his fork down slowly. He looked right at Leo, ignoring his mother completely. His gaze was icy. "There won't be a next time. Do you understand me?" Leo just stared at his plate. He nodded, his face red with humiliation. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry, Grandpa." The rest of the dinner was agonizingly quiet. We just listened to the sound of forks scraping against plates. My gut was churning. Ryan's reaction was, it was wrong. It was completely out of proportion. This wasn't a father teaching his son a lesson. This was a man trying to silence a witness, but a witness to what my mind was racing. Why would Ryan care so much that Leo thought he saw Diana? Why was he the one reacting and not Diana herself? I looked at my wife. She was quietly eating her pot roast, her face a mask of serene calm. She didn't look like a woman who had been at the Starlight Inn. She just looked like a woman who was annoyed her Sunday dinner had been spoiled. But Ryan, his reaction was the second crack in the foundation. It was a warning shot, and it told me clear as day that this was not a simple mistake. I sat there, my fork halfway to my mouth, the pot roast turning to ash in my mouth. Ryan's anger was too much. It was a $500 reaction to a $5 problem. Why? Why would a successful man, a 45-year-old financial manager, get that angry over a 17-year-old's honest mistake? He didn't just scold him, he attacked him. He called the boy's observation fantasies and ridiculous gossip. He wasn't acting like a father. He was acting like a man whose cover was about to be blown. But a cover for what? Was he protecting his mother? Did he think I would be angry at Diana? I've been married to her for 45 years. I know who she is. Or I thought I did. No, this was something else. I've managed crews of 200 men. I've handled union disputes. I've caught thieves stealing copper pipe. I've dealt with every kind of liar God ever created. I know when a story doesn't fit. And this didn't fit. Ryan's anger was a red flag. A big, flapping red flag. I looked across the table at Diana. She was the one who was supposedly seen, but she was just sitting there looking flustered by the argument, quietly telling Ryan to eat his dinner. She wasn't angry. She wasn't guilty. She just seemed sad. It was Ryan who was radioactive. He was the one who couldn't let it go. The rest of that dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling. It was like finding a hairline crack in a new foundation. It's small. You tell yourself it's nothing, just the house settling. But in the back of your mind, you're terrified. You're wondering if it's the first sign that the whole house is about to come down. I couldn't sleep that night. I just couldn't. I lay in bed staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the grandfather clock tick downstairs. 1 a.m., 1:30. The house was dead quiet. Diana was sleeping peacefully beside me, or so I thought. At maybe 2:15. I felt the mattress shift. It was a tiny movement, but in the silence it felt like an earthquake. I kept my eyes closed. I focused on my breathing, deep and even, in and out, pretending to be in a deep sleep. I felt Diana slip out of the bed. I heard her bare feet patter softly on the hardwood floor. Where was she going? To get a glass of water? No. I heard the click of the master bathroom door. It didn't slam, just clicked shut, but not all the way. It was just enough to muffle the sound. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. I slipped out of my side of the bed. The floor was cold against my feet. I crept across the bedroom. The air was still. All I could hear was the faint hum of the air conditioner. I felt like a fool. A 70-year-old man spying on his wife in his own home. But that feeling from dinner, that crack in the foundation, it was burning in my gut. I got closer to the bathroom door, and then I heard it. A whisper. It was Diana. She was on her cell phone at 2:15 in the morning. I know, she whispered. Her voice was different. It wasn't my wife's voice, it was stressed, thin. This wasn't the woman who was debating geography on Friday. I know, Ryan. Stop calling me about this. My heart stopped. It felt like a fist had closed around it. Ryan, again, at 2 in the morning. Why, I leaned closer, my ear almost touching the wood. He's 70 years old, Ryan. He's not stupid, but he's trusting. He won't look any deeper. Trusting. Was that what I was all these years? Was I just trusting? She paused, listening. Her voice changed. It became defensive. What do you mean, he better not? Don't talk to me like that. I'm your mother. Another pause. It was just bad luck. How was I supposed to know the boy would be there? It's a miracle he didn't see you. See who? What bad luck, my mind was spinning. No, she said, her voice dropping lower, trying to end the call. He'll forget it. Mike thinks it was just a silly mistake. He believes me. He always believes me. A final pause. I know. I'll make sure. Good night. I heard the click of the phone ending the call. I scrambled back to the bed, diving under the covers, my heart hammering so hard I thought she would hear it through the mattress. The bathroom door opened. I heard her sigh, a long, weary sigh that seemed to come from the bottom of her soul. She padded back to the bed. The mattress shifted as she slipped under the covers. She was just 3 feet away from me. This stranger. This woman who was plotting with my son in the middle of the night. And I lay there rigid as a steel beam, pretending to be asleep, the faint smell of lavender and lies filling my lungs. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't Leo's imagination. My wife Diana, the grandmother, the gardener, the church volunteer, was lying. She was covering for our son. And they were both involved in something. Something at the Starlight Inn. Something that involved payments. My practical world of concrete and steel had just dissolved into shadows, and I realized I didn't know my wife at all. The next morning, I felt like a stranger in my own home. When Diana came into the kitchen smiling and handed me my coffee, just the way I like it, I had to force myself to smile back. I looked at this woman I had slept next to for 45 years, and all I could see was the liar in the bathroom. All I could hear was, "He always believes me." I felt like a fool, a complete and total fool. I decided to act. I couldn't live like this in this fog of suspicion. I'm a construction manager. You don't solve a problem by staring at it. You solve it by getting your hands dirty. I felt ashamed. Here I was, 70 years old, about to spy on my 69-year-old wife, the mother of my son, the grandmother of my grandson. I felt like the lowest man on earth. This was Diana. My Diana. This was the woman who had made the best apple pie in all of North Carolina for 45 straight years. The woman who knitted blankets for the children's hospital. She couldn't possibly be involved with a place like the Starlight Inn. It was impossible. It didn't make sense. My practical mind, the one that built skyscrapers, told me it was ridiculous. But that 2 a.m. phone call, that wasn't a dream. I wasn't senile. I heard it. I heard her voice. I heard her lie to our son. I heard her say she would make sure I didn't find out. And Ryan's anger at the dinner table, that was real too. That was the reaction of a man cornered. I had to know. I had to see it for myself. I couldn't confront her, not yet. What would I say? "Honey, I heard you whispering a conspiracy to our son in the bathroom at 2 a.m. She would just deny it. She would say I was dreaming. She would lie. No, I needed proof. I needed to see what was real with my own eyes. So I made a plan. I would follow her. I would watch her. I would see where she went when she wasn't at the garden club or the church. A part of me was desperate to be proven wrong. I wanted to follow her and find nothing. I wanted to find her planting flowers, buying groceries, and knitting. I wanted to go to bed that night, kiss her on the cheek, and apologize, even if only in my mind, for ever doubting her. That was my plan, to prove my own suspicions wrong. But a darker part of me, the part that heard her whisper, "He always believes me," knew I wouldn't be that lucky. The next day was Tuesday. I felt conflicted, ashamed. I'm a man who builds things. I built a career, a family, a life based on trust. And here I was about to tear it all down because of a shadow. But that 2 a.m. phone call, I'll make sure. He always believes me. That wasn't a dream. I had to know. "I'm heading out, Mike," Diana called from the hallway, grabbing her sun hat. "The azaleas are in full bloom. The garden club is meeting for pruning." "Sounds good, honey," I called back from the garage. I was pretending to organize my toolbox, which I had already organized 3 times that week. The moment her old, reliable Toyota pulled out of the driveway, I was in my truck. My heart was pounding. I felt like a criminal in my own life. I kept 3 cars back, just like I'd seen in the movies. I felt ridiculous. My hands were shaking so badly on the steering wheel, I felt like a teenager, or worse, a private eye in a cheap movie. I followed her right to the community garden. It's just 5 blocks from the church. I parked across the street behind a large oak tree, feeling like the world's oldest and stupidest spy. I slouched down in my seat, pulling my baseball cap down low. And I sat there for 2 hours. I watched my wife. She was gardening. She was on her hands and knees wearing her favorite straw hat, laughing with 3 other women her age. I recognized them. Mildred and Sarah from the church, and Mrs. Gable from down the street. They were pulling weeds. They were potting petunias. They were drinking lemonade from a thermos. I sat there watching my wife be my wife. This wasn't a criminal. This wasn't Ms. D from the Starlight Inn. This was a grandmother planting flowers. I felt a wave of relief so strong my knees went weak. And then I felt shame. Pure hot shame. What was I doing? I was losing my mind. Leo was wrong. Ryan was just an overprotective father, and that 2 a.m. phone call, I must have dreamt it. Or maybe I misheard it. I felt low. Lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut. I started the truck and drove home, making sure I got back before her. I was almost convinced. Almost. But that voice. He always believes me. I had to check one more time. Wednesday morning. I'm off to the Harris Teeter Mike, she said, making a list on a little notepad. And then I have my knitting circle at the church. We're making blankets for the children's hospital. Do you need anything? No, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm just going to read my book in the backyard. The moment she left, I was back in my truck. This time I felt even worse. I felt like a predator. I followed her to the Harris Teeter supermarket. I parked. I went inside wearing the same baseball cap pulled down low, hiding behind a pyramid of cereal boxes, like some kind of idiot. I watched my wife shop. She spent 20 minutes comparing the prices of canned tomatoes. She haggled with the butcher over a cut of beef. She pulled out a stack of coupons and used one for laundry detergent. This was not the behavior of a woman running a criminal empire. This was the behavior of a retired grandmother on a fixed income. I followed her from the supermarket to the First Baptist Church. I sat in my truck in the church parking lot for another 2 hours. I felt like I was going to be struck by lightning for spying at a church. At noon, I saw her come out. She was laughing with the pastor's wife. They were holding up their knitting projects. They looked like church ladies. I drove home, my head pounding. I was going insane. I was the fool. I was the one who was paranoid. Ryan was right. I was just an old retired man with nothing better to do than invent conspiracies. I was ready to give up. Completely. I was ready to apologize to God for what I'd been doing. I decided on Thursday I wouldn't follow her. I would stay home. I would trust her. And what did Diana do on Thursday? She didn't go anywhere. Ryan dropped off his youngest, our 4-year-old granddaughter, Lily. Diana was babysitting. I stayed in the living room pretending to read the paper, but I was watching her. She spent the entire day on the floor. She played dolls with Lily. She read The Very Hungry Caterpillar 3 times, doing all the voices. She made grilled cheese sandwiches with the crusts cut off. The entire house filled with the smell of cinnamon and baked apples because she was teaching Lily how to make a pie. I sat at the kitchen table watching her. This patient, loving grandmother, her face dusted with flour. And I felt the lowest I have ever felt in my entire life. I was a monster. I had accused this woman in my own mind of, I don't know what, all because of a kid's mistake and a late-night phone call I must have dreamed. I went to bed that night feeling resolved. I was done. I was going to forget the whole thing. I was going to apologize to Diana for being so distant, and I was going to tell Leo to stop working so hard. I was wrong. I had never been more wrong in my life. I drove home that Thursday afternoon, the smell of apple pie from our kitchen filling the truck. I felt lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut. I was a fool. a 70-year-old paranoid fool. I walked into my own house and Diana looked up from the kitchen table where she was showing Lily how to crimp the pie crust. She smiled at me, a pure, simple smile, her face dusted with flour. "You're just in time, Mike," she said. "We're almost done." And in that moment, I felt like the lowest man on earth. I told myself I was done. This entire investigation, this spying, it was over. I'm a construction manager. I've spent 45 years of my life believing in facts. I believe in blueprints. I believe in concrete. I believe in what I can see with my own two eyes. And what had I seen for the past 3 days? I saw my wife planting petunias with other old ladies. I saw her comparing prices on canned tomatoes at the Harris Teeter. I saw her sitting in a church basement, knitting a blanket for a sick child. I saw her on our kitchen floor, patiently teaching our granddaughter how to bake. That was the evidence, the facts, the truth. My wife was a good woman. She was my Diana. She was exactly who she appeared to be. So what about the other things, the things that had burrowed into my brain, Leo's call? That had to be it. It was just a mistake. A 17-year-old kid driving around in the dark, hopped up on caffeine and sugar, trying to make a few extra bucks. Of course he'd see things. He saw someone with silver hair at a dumpy motel, and his mind jumped to the craziest conclusion. And Ryan's anger at dinner. Well, I'd been hard on Ryan as a kid. Maybe he was just repeating the cycle. He's a high-stress finance guy. He's worried about Leo's grades, his college applications. He probably just snapped. He was angry his son was working a DoorDash job instead of studying for his SATs, and he took it out on him at our dinner table. It was bad form, but it wasn't a conspiracy. And the 2 a.m. phone call, I sat there in my recliner, the smell of apple pie baking, and I forced myself to face the truth. I probably dreamed it. Or I misheard it. The house is old. I'm 70. Maybe I woke up, heard her in the bathroom, and my paranoid old mind twisted her words. Maybe she was just talking to Ryan like any mother would, telling him to go easy on his son. Telling him she would handle it, that she would talk to Leo and me and smooth everything over. Yes, that had to be it. That was the only explanation that made sense. The alternative, that my wife of 45 years was involved in. What a Motel 7 men payments. It was insane. It was the plot of a bad movie, not my life in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was the one who was wrong. I was the one who was breaking the trust. I was the one who had turned into a suspicious, jealous old man hiding behind trees and cereal boxes. I was disgusted with myself. I almost walked right into that kitchen and confessed everything. I almost got on my knees and apologized to Diana for ever doubting her. I decided right then and there it was over. I was going to let it go. I was going to go back to being the man she deserved. I was going to trust my wife. I almost did. I almost gave up. But then Friday came. I went to bed that Thursday night feeling resolved. I was done. I was going to let it go. I was going to go back to being the man she deserved. I was going to trust my wife. And I slept. I slept better than I had all week. Then Friday morning came. I woke up and the first image that flashed into my mind wasn't Diana's smile or the apple pie or the garden. It was the buzzing, flickering neon sign of the Starlight Inn. It was the number 7. 7 guys. It was the terror in my grandson's voice. I tried to push it away. I told myself it was over. I was a fool. I was paranoid. But as I sat there drinking my coffee, the doubt it wouldn't leave. It was like a splinter in my mind. You can ignore it for a while, but it's still there, festering. Why had Leo been so adamant? He didn't just say, "Grandpa, I saw someone who looked like Grandma." He said, "Grandpa, I saw Grandma." He swore it. A 17-year-old kid doesn't call his grandfather panicked unless he is 100% certain of what he saw. And Ryan's anger. It wasn't just go easy on your grandparents. And it was stop spreading ridiculous gossip. It was a threat. And the whisper. He always believes me. I had tried to convince myself I dreamed it. But as I sat there, the sun coming up, I knew. I knew I hadn't dreamed it. I heard it. I heard her. My facts were at war. Fact 1. My wife is a saint. I've watched her for 3 days. She's innocent. Fact 2. My grandson saw something. My son is terrified of something. And my wife lied to my son about me. Both of these things could not be true at the same time. Unless the person Leo saw wasn't Diana. Unless it was someone who just looked like her. A shiver went down my spine. That made more sense. Maybe my son Ryan was involved in something shady with a woman who looked like his mother. And maybe Leo seeing her had threatened to expose him. And maybe Diana knew about it. Maybe she was just covering for her son like any mother would. A mother protecting her boy. That felt closer to the truth. But it still meant my son was involved in something dirty at the Starlight Inn. And he was dragging his mother into it. I had to know. I couldn't live with this. I couldn't look at my wife, I couldn't look at my son until I knew the final piece of the puzzle. Who was that woman in the parking lot? It was Friday. Exactly 1 week since Leo's call. I stood in the kitchen, my coffee untouched. I felt the lie in my throat before I even said it. It tasted like ash. Diana, I called out. She was in the living room reading her book. I'm heading out for a bit. The guys down at the VFW post are having a lunch. Old Ben Carter is in town apparently. She looked up over her glasses, her eyes clear and trusting. Oh, that's nice, dear. Say hello to Ben for me. Just don't let them talk you into playing poker all afternoon. I won't, I said. I'll be back before dinner. I felt a fresh wave of guilt wash over me. She trusted me completely. And here I was lying to her face, again. But I had to. This was the last piece, this was the splinter in my mind. The Starlight Inn. I had spent the last week proving to myself I was crazy. I had watched her plant flowers, knit blankets, and bake pies. I had seen a saint, but I had also heard a liar in the bathroom at 2 a.m. I needed to know which one was real. I got in my truck, but I didn't drive toward the VFW. I drove toward Highway 27. I hadn't been to this part of town in 20 years. It's the industrial outskirts, all warehouses and chain-link fences. You can smell the diesel in the air. And then I saw it. My God, it was even worse in the daylight. Leo was right. It was a dump. The Starlight Inn. The paint was peeling off the concrete walls in long sun-baked strips, revealing the gray cinder block underneath. The Starlight sign was missing the S and the T. It just said Our Light Inn. The neon tubing was smashed in 3 places. The parking lot was cracked asphalt with more weeds than pavement. There were 2 cars up on blocks near the back, and an old mattress leaned against the dumpster. This wasn't just a cheap motel. This was the end of the line. This was a place for lost souls. What was I doing here? My 70-year-old heart was pounding against my ribs. I'm a man who builds things. I spent my life on job sites in bright sun with the smell of sawdust and fresh concrete. This place felt like a sickness. I parked my truck 2 blocks away next to a boarded-up warehouse. I walked. I pulled my baseball cap down low like that would make me invisible. I felt dirty, just being there. I pushed open the glass door to the office. A little bell caked with rust tinkled above my head. The room was tiny. It smelled like stale cigarettes, bleach, and, I don't know, despair. Behind a sheet of cloudy yellowed plexiglass sat a woman. She must have been my age, maybe a little older, with hair dyed a bright brassy red that didn't come from nature. Her fingernails were long and painted a glittering purple. She was watching a talk show on a tiny buzzing television set, the volume way up. She didn't even look at me. "Help you?" she said, her eyes glued to the screen. This was it. My moment of truth. I felt my hands go clammy. I'm not a spy. I'm a grandfather. I reached into my pocket, my fingers fumbling. I pulled out a $50 bill. I slid it through the little half-moon slot at the bottom of the glass. That got her attention. Her eyes snapped from the TV to the money, then to my face. Her eyes were sharp, bored, like she had seen everything and none of it was interesting. "I'm not a cop," I said. My voice sounded rough. I'm not looking for trouble." She just stared at me. I'm looking for someone. My grandson was here last Friday, delivering food. He thought he saw someone he knew. I think he was mistaken. I just need to settle my mind. I need to know he was wrong." She looked at the 50 again. Then slowly, she slid it out of the tray and tucked it into her pocket. "A lot of people come here, old man," she said, her voice like gravel. "You gotta be more specific." This was it. I pulled out my phone. I opened my photo gallery. And I clicked on the picture I took of Diana at our 45th anniversary just last year. She was smiling. Her silver hair was perfect. She was wearing her blue Sunday dress. She looked like an angel, like the last person on earth who would ever be in a place like this. My hand was shaking as I slid the phone under the glass. "This is her," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This is my wife, Diana. My grandson. He said he saw her here, last Friday night, in the parking lot." I held my breath. I needed her to laugh. I needed her to tell me I was crazy. "He must have been wrong, right?" The woman Brenda leaned forward. Her chair screeched against the cheap linoleum floor. She squinted at the phone screen through the cloudy plexiglass. Her eyes, sharp and bored, scanned the photo of Diana. She looked at the photo for a long, long time. I could feel my own pulse hammering in my temples. "Yeah," she finally said, her gravelly voice flat. "Looks familiar." "Familiar," I pushed. Does she stay here?" Brenda leaned back, crossing her arms. She looked at me, not the phone. "Listen, Pops, I see 100 faces a week. Familiar don't mean much." She was lying. Or at least she was holding back. I knew it. A good construction manager knows when a contractor is giving him a story. Her eyes had flickered. My hand was already in my pocket. I pulled out another $50 bill. I didn't hesitate. I slid it right through the slot. It sat next to the first one. "Please," I said, and I hated the desperation in my own voice. It's important. It's my family. I just need to know he was wrong." Brenda stared at the two bills. She let out a long, slow breath that smelled like stale coffee. She looked left then right down the empty, peeling hallway. Then she snatched the money and tucked it away. "All right," she said, leaning in so close I could see the cracks in her heavy foundation makeup. "Settle down. I'll tell you what I know." "It's not her," she said, tapping her purple fingernail on the glass right over Diana's smiling face. "Not her, your wife. She looks like a nice church lady. This one ain't her." I felt a rush of relief so strong I almost sagged against the counter. "Thank God," I whispered. "So my grandson was—" But Brenda cut me off, her eyes narrowing. The kid wasn't wrong either. My blood went cold again. What do you mean?" "There's a woman, comes here every Friday, like clockwork, round 6 p.m. A woman. Yeah. She calls herself Ms. D, always pays cash. Always wants the same room. Number 7. Back corner, no cameras pointing at the door. Stays for 2, maybe 3 hours. Then she's gone." And who does she... who does she meet? Brenda shrugged. Not my business. But it's always the same crew. A group of guys. Rough types. 7, maybe 8 of them. They show up, they go in the room with her, they leave. No noise, no trouble. Just business. Not my kind of business, but it pays the rent. I couldn't breathe. Ms. D. I repeated the name, feeling foreign and ugly in my mouth. But what does that have to do with my wife? Brenda leaned in one last time. She looked right into my eyes. Because Pops, Ms. D, she looks exactly like your wife. What? I'm serious, she said, glancing back at my phone. She tries to cover it up. Wears one of them cheap, bright blonde wigs, you know, and way too much makeup. Lipstick so red it'd stop traffic. Tries to look younger, but it just makes her look trashy. But under all that junk, she tapped the glass again. Under all that junk, it's that face. The same eyes. The same nose. The same chin, my God. They could be twins. I always thought there was something funny about her. She leaned back, her part of the conversation over. I stumbled backward out of the office into the harsh sunlight. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked. My mind was reeling. A double. A look-alike. A woman named Ms. D. Room 7 cash. 7 men. The splinter of doubt wasn't a splinter anymore. It was a gaping wound. Leo wasn't crazy. Ryan wasn't just being a strict father. And Diana's 2 a.m. phone call. It's a miracle he didn't see you. This was real. All of it. And my wife, or someone who looked exactly like her, was right in the middle of it. I stumbled out of that motel office. I don't remember walking back to my truck. I just ended up there. I sat in the cab for what felt like an hour, the engine off, just staring at a crack in the windshield. Brenda's words echoed in my head. It's not her, but it's her face. They could be twins, a look-alike, a double. My entire theory, the one where I was a paranoid, jealous old fool, it collapsed. My week of spying, my guilt, it was all a waste of time. I was following the wrong person. Diana was innocent. She was planting flowers. She was knitting. She was baking pies. But Leo wasn't wrong. He saw exactly what he thought he saw. A woman with his grandmother's face at a sleazy motel handing out cash to a group of rough-looking men. A woman named Ms. D. My mind was spinning. Why would anyone hire a woman to look like Diana Sullivan, a 69-year-old grandmother from Charlotte? People hire lookalikes for movie stars, for politicians, not for retired gardeners who clip coupons. It's insane. It makes no sense. Unless the point was her. Unless the point was Diana Sullivan. And then the other piece clicked into place. The piece that had been bothering me all along. Ryan. His anger at Sunday dinner. It wasn't about Leo seeing Mom. It was about Leo seeing Ms. D. And Diana's phone call. That 2 a.m. whisper. It's a miracle he didn't see you. She wasn't talking to Ryan about herself. She was talking to him about him. Ryan must have been there, or nearby. He was the one who was almost caught. My son Ryan, is involved in something. Some dirty cash in an envelope business at that motel. And for some reason, for some sick, twisted reason, he needs a woman who looks exactly like his mother to be the face of it. That's why he was so furious. That's why he tried to shut Leo down, calling it fantasies and gossip. He wasn't protecting Diana from me. He was protecting his operation from both of us. And Diana, my poor Diana, she was just covering for her boy. She wasn't a criminal. She was a mother. a mother lying in the middle of the night to protect her only son. This was so much worse than an affair. An affair, that's simple. That's just betrayal. This is a conspiracy. This is dark. My wife isn't the liar I thought she was. She's just a fool for her son. But Ryan is using her. He's using her to cover his tracks. And he's using a stranger's face, his mother's face, to do his dirty work. I felt a different kind of coldness now. This wasn't the shame of a paranoid husband. This was the ice-cold rage of a father. My son was in trouble. He was in deep. And he was dragging his innocent mother right down with him. I had to know what it was. I had to know what he was doing. And I had to stop him. I needed to see it for myself. I needed to catch them in the act. I needed a plan. The next week was the longest of my life. I had to live in my own house, sit across the dinner table from Diana, and act like everything was normal. I had to smile when she talked about her garden. I had to nod when she complained about the new pastor. All the while I was carrying this sickness in my gut. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a spy. And I was living with a woman who was at best a co-conspirator in her own son's lies, and at worst, I still didn't know. But my plan was set. I knew from Brenda, the motel clerk, that Ms. D showed up every Friday, like clockwork, 6 p.m. I needed to be there. But I couldn't just go. I needed an alibi. I needed a reason to be gone all day, a reason that Diana wouldn't question. And more importantly, I needed to know for certain that she was at home. I had to prove that Diana and Ms. D were two different people in two different places at the same time. So on Thursday night, I set the trap. I waited until we were cleaning up after dinner. I took a deep breath. The lie had to be perfect. "Diana," I said, trying to sound annoyed, "you're not going to believe this." She looked up from the sink, her hands in the soapy water. "What is it, honey?" "That was Ben Carter on the phone," I said. Ben was my oldest friend, my foreman for 20 years before he retired up to Asheville. We talked all the time. The lie was believable. "Oh, how is he?" she asked. "He's a disaster." I sighed, running my hand through my hair like I was frustrated. "His main water line, the one under his slab, it burst. He says his whole downstairs is flooding. He's trying to get a plumber, but it's a mess, and his wife is in hysterics." Diana's face was pure sympathy. "Oh, the poor things. That's terrible." "Yeah," I said. "And well, you know Ben. He doesn't trust anyone. He's asking if I can drive up there tomorrow morning. Just to look at it. To tell him if the plumber is ripping him off. You know how he is about contractors." Diana dried her hands on her apron. She didn't hesitate for a second. "Well, of course you have to go, Mike. That's what friends are for. Poor Ben. He sounds terrified." "It'll be an all-day trip, though," I said, sealing the deal. "Asheville is a good 3 hours each way. I'll have to leave early. I'll probably be back. Late. Really late. You'll be okay here alone." She smiled that gentle, loving smile that I was now questioning. "Michael, I'm a grown woman. I'll be perfectly fine. I'll probably just rent that new movie I wanted to see and make myself some popcorn. You just go. Go help your friend." She put her hand on my arm. "And you drive safe, you hear me? Don't you be speeding up that mountain." I nodded. "I will." I went to bed that night with a heart of lead. Her innocence, her simple, trusting concern. It was confirmation. This sweet woman was not Ms. D. She wasn't capable of it. But she was capable of lying to protect her son. And as I lay there, I realized my trap was set. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., my wife would be at home watching her movie. And I would be in the shadows across the street from the Starlight Inn waiting for her double to appear. Friday morning. 9 a.m. sharp. I walked out to the garage, my old tool bag slung over my shoulder. It was heavy, but not with tools. I had filled it with 2 heavy wrenches and a hammer just for the weight, just in case she picked it up. Diana followed me to the door, wringing her hands in that way she does. "Now you be careful, Mike," she said, fussing with the collar of my jacket. "Don't you be a hero. Just tell Ben what you think and come home." I will, I said. I hugged her. It felt wrong. It felt like a betrayal. I was holding this good, trusting woman, and I was lying to her. "I'll call you when I'm heading back. It'll be late." "Okay." "I love you," she said. "I love you too," I whispered. And I meant it. That was the sickest part. I got in my truck and pulled out of the driveway, watching her wave from the doorway until I turned the corner. I drove for 10 minutes. I drove to the Food Lion parking lot 5 miles away. I parked in the far corner behind a line of empty shopping carts, and I sat there. For hours. I felt like the biggest fool in the world. I read the paper. I did the crossword puzzle. I ate a bag of peanuts I had in the glove box. I just waited. I waited for the day to bleed away. Noon, 2 p.m., 4 p.m. At 4:30, I got out of my truck, locked it, and walked to the main road. I pulled out my cell phone and did something I had never done in my life. I called an Uber. I couldn't risk it. Ryan, my son, he knew my truck. If he was involved, if he was anywhere near that motel, he would spot my old Ford F-150 from a mile away. A small rattling Hyundai pulled up. The kid driving it couldn't have been older than Leo. "Where to, boss?" he asked, his music thumping. I gave him the address of a gas station 2 blocks from the Starlight Inn. I sat in the back, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. I was 70 years old. I had managed multi-million-dollar construction sites. I had stared down union reps and angry suppliers, and I was terrified. I was terrified of what I was about to find. And I was terrified of being wrong. He dropped me off. I walked the 2 blocks, my baseball cap pulled low. Across the street from the motel, there was a small Greasy Spoon cafe. Pop's Diner. The sign was almost as faded as the motel's. It was perfect. I went inside. The place smelled of old coffee and fried onions. I slid into a booth in the corner, a booth with a cracked vinyl seat and a perfect unobstructed view of the motel's parking lot. The windows were gray with dust, which just made me feel more hidden. A waitress came over. I ordered a black coffee. I knew I wouldn't be able to drink it. And then I waited. My leg was bouncing under the table. My coffee went cold. I watched the clock on the wall. The second hand seemed to move through wet cement. 5 p.m. The sun was starting to get low. The shadows stretched across the asphalt. 5:30. My stomach was in knots. Was Brenda the clerk lying to me? Was this all a wild goose chase? Was I the fool after all? 5:45. 6 p.m., right on time. A yellow taxi, not an Uber, pulled into the motel lot. It didn't go to the office. It drove straight to the back corner, to room 7. The taxi stopped. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the table. The back door of the taxi opened. A woman got out. And it was her. I couldn't breathe. It was Diana, but it was wrong. All wrong. This woman wasn't my Diana. She was wearing a cheap, bright blonde wig. It was styled exactly like Diana's hair, but it was harsh, brassy. She had on a leopard print coat, a coat so loud it was screaming. Tight blue jeans, high-heeled boots. Her face was caked in makeup. Bright red lipstick, dark raccoon-like eyeshadow. She looked like a bad caricature of my wife, a twisted funhouse mirror version. But it was her face. Brenda was right. Under all that junk, it was Diana's face. The same eyes, the same chin, the same high cheekbones. It was 99% her. It was horrifying. I watched frozen. And just like Leo said, a group of men came out from the shadows near the dumpster. 7 of them, exactly. They weren't bikers. They looked like laborers. Work boots, dirty jeans, tired faces. This wasn't a rendezvous. This was a meeting. The woman, Ms. D. She reached into a large purse. She pulled out a stack of plain white envelopes. One by one, the men walked up to her. She didn't smile. She didn't talk. She just handed them each an envelope. They took it, nodded, and walked away. It was a transaction. It was a payday. I watched her hand out the last envelope. It was all happening. Just like Leo said. Just like Brenda said. A woman who looked exactly like my wife was handing out cash envelopes to a crew of men in the parking lot of a sleazy motel. I watched her hand out the last envelope. The last man nodded, pocketed the cash, and disappeared around the corner of the building. The woman, Ms. D, stood alone for a moment. She looked around the empty, cracked parking lot, pulling that tacky leopard print coat tighter around herself. She looked small and out of place. She reached into her purse, probably to call her taxi. But the taxi never came. Instead, a pair of bright white LED headlights swept across the lot. A car turned in off the highway, moving slowly, deliberately. It wasn't a cab. It was a BMW, a new black 5 Series, the kind of car a high-level financial manager drives. My heart wasn't just pounding. It stopped. I knew that car. I had helped him pick it out. The BMW didn't park. It just idled. It glided to a stop right next to her, the engine a low, expensive purr. The passenger window, heavily tinted, slid down with a faint whir. My son. My son Ryan was sitting in the driver's seat. He was wearing his suit and tie, looking like he had just left his office at the bank. He didn't look at her. He was staring straight ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He was all business. He didn't get out. He didn't say a word. Miss D. The woman with my wife's face walked right up to the passenger window. She leaned down. She handed him a small black zippered bag. It looked like a bank pouch. Maybe receipts, paperwork. Ryan took it without looking. He didn't even turn his head. He just reached across, grabbed the bag, and dropped it onto the passenger seat. Then he reached into his own briefcase, which was sitting next to him. He pulled out a much thicker, heavier bag. It looked like a simple canvas gym bag, but it was weighted down. It was full. It had to be the cash. The money for all those envelopes. He handed the bag out the window to Ms. D. She took it. The exchange was cold. It was fast. It was professional. This was not a meeting of lovers. This was not a family affair. This was a transaction. Ms. D stepped back from the car. The tinted window slid back up, sealing my son inside his dark, expensive bubble. And just like that, the BMW pulled away, its tires crunching on the gravel. It turned back onto the highway and disappeared. Ryan never saw me. He never looked left. He never looked right. He was just gone. I sat there in the Greasy Spoon diner, my cold coffee in front of me. I was frozen. I couldn't move. My hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles were white. I had come here to find out if my wife was a liar. And I had found out that my son, my only son, was a criminal. And for some sick, twisted reason, he was using a woman with his mother's face to do his dirty work. I don't know how long I sat there. The waitress came over and refilled my coffee cup, but I didn't even notice. The coffee just sat there, steam rising, then vanishing. My mind was reeling. It was spinning out of control. all that shame I felt, all that guilt for following my wife, all that time I spent watching her plant flowers and knit blankets thinking I was a monster. It was all a waste. Because I was right. No, I was wrong. I was so wrong. My original suspicion, the one that had been eating me alive, was that my wife was cheating on me, that my Diana was sneaking out lying to me meeting some man at that sleazy motel. The truth was 1,000 times worse. Diana wasn't a cheater. Diana was innocent. She was at home. Right now. She was probably at this very moment curled up on our recliner, watching that movie she rented, maybe even eating that popcorn she talked about. She was safe. She was good. She was my Diana. And that was the most horrifying part. Because my son Ryan was using her. He was using a woman who looked exactly like her as the public face of what a cash drop a payday for a rough crew. What in God's name was he doing? This wasn't an affair. An affair is simple. It's passion. It's betrayal. I can understand that. This was cold. This was calculated. This was a conspiracy. My son, my only son, had hired a woman, a cheap imposter in a blonde wig and a leopard print coat to look just like his mother. Why would he do that? To frame her, to use her identity. My mind flashed back to Brenda the clerk's words. She pays cash, always wants room 7, no cameras. And Ryan, showing up in his pristine BMW, not even getting out, just making the exchange like a boss, like a gangster. My blood ran cold, colder than I've ever felt. This was worse than adultery. This was darker. This was criminal. And that phone call, that 2 a.m. whisper, it's a miracle he didn't see you. Diana wasn't talking about herself. She was talking about him. Ryan. She knew, my God, she knew. She wasn't the mastermind. But she knew, She knew our son was involved in something dirty, something at that motel. And when Leo called, she didn't just lie to me. She lied to protect Ryan. He always believes me. She was using my trust in her as a shield to hide our son's crimes. I felt hollowed out. My whole life. My 45 years of marriage, my son, who I was so proud of. It was all a lie. But not the lie I thought. It was a lie of secrets and conspiracies and cash in envelopes and a woman with my wife's face. I finally understood. Ryan was the snake, and he had poisoned everything, even his mother. I had to find out what he was doing, and I had to stop him. I finally stood up from the booth. My legs felt like they were filled with wet cement. I threw a $10 bill on the table for the coffee I never drank and walked out into the cool night air. I got back to my truck still parked at the Food Lion, but I didn't start it. I just sat there in the dark in the empty parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My son Ryan. I felt hollow. This wasn't something I could fix. This wasn't a broken pipe or a bad foundation. This was a rot in my own family. And I was 70 years old, and I had no idea what to do. I couldn't confront Ryan, not yet. He would just lie. He would lie, and he would get his mother to lie for him. They would both look me in the eye and tell me I was a crazy old man. I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone who wasn't part of this. I needed someone who knew how to look into the dark. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my cell phone. I scrolled past Diana. I scrolled past Ryan. I went all the way down to Ben Carter. Ben was my foreman for 20 years. He was the best man I ever knew on a job site. He could spot a bad weld from 50 yards away. He was practical, no nonsense, and he never ever lied. When he retired 10 years ago, he didn't buy a fishing boat. He got his private investigator's license. He said he was too nosy to just sit still. I hadn't called him in 6 months. I felt a wave of shame. What was I supposed to say? Ben, my son, is a criminal and he's using a woman who looks like my wife to pass out cash at a sleazy motel. I hit the call button. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was gravelly, just like I remembered. Mike, it's past 9. You fall off a roof. Ben, I said. My voice cracked. I had to stop and clear my throat. Ben, I'm in trouble. I need your help. The joking tone in his voice was gone instantly. Where are you? Are you okay? Is it Diana? No, Diana's fine, I said. I'm in my truck. Ben, I need to hire you. There was a long silence on the other end. Hire me, Mike. What the hell is going on? You sound awful. I can't talk about it over the phone, I said, my voice trembling. But I need you to find someone. I'll pay whatever it costs. I'll pay double your rate. I need to know. Know what? Who are we looking for? I took a deep breath. A woman. She goes by the name Ms. D. She's at the Starlight Inn on Highway 27, every Friday night, 6 p.m., room 7. She's handing out cash. Okay, Ben said, his voice all business now. That's easy enough. A drug mule, a bookie. I don't know, Ben. That's what I need you to find out. I need to know who she is. I need to know who she's meeting, and... I hesitated. The next words felt like broken glass in my mouth. And Ben, I need to know what she has to do with my son. Ryan Sullivan. Another long, cold silence. Ben knew Ryan. He'd seen him grow up. He'd come to his college graduation. Ryan, Ben finally said. His voice was flat. Mike, you better be sure about this. I saw him, Ben, I whispered, and I felt the tears finally come hot and angry. I saw him there tonight. He was giving her the money. Ben, please, I have to know. I have to know what he's done, and I have to know who that woman is. Because, Ben, she looks just like Diana. I got home late that Friday night. The house was quiet. The front light was on just like she always left it for me. I walked inside, and the first thing I saw was Diana asleep in her recliner, the television playing softly, her movie long over. Her book was open on her lap. She looked peaceful. She looked like an angel. My heart just broke. She was innocent. She had been home all night waiting for me while I was out proving she wasn't a criminal. And our son was using a woman with her face to commit God knows what crimes. I gently touched her shoulder. Diana, I whispered. Honey, I'm home. She woke up with a start. Oh, Mike, goodness, you're back. What time is it? I must have dozed off. She looked at the clock. It's past midnight. Was Ben's plumbing that bad? The lie felt like acid in my mouth. It came out easier than I expected. Worse, I said, my voice thick. It was a total mess, honey. The main line under the slab. We had to cap it off. It was a long day. She got up, her face full of that pure, simple sympathy. Oh, you poor thing, she said, coming over to rub my shoulders. You look exhausted. Let me get you something to eat. No, I said, stepping away maybe too quickly. I'm just tired. I'm going to head to bed. I couldn't look her in the eye. I couldn't stand there and let this good, innocent woman wait on me, not after what I knew. Not when I knew she was a victim just like I was. That was the beginning of the hell. The next 2 weeks, they were the worst of my entire life. Worse than any job site accident, worse than any financial panic. Because I was living a lie in my own home. I was living like an undercover agent. Every morning I'd wake up, or pretend to. I barely slept. I'd go into the kitchen, and Diana would be there just like always. She'd be humming to her oldies radio station, pouring me a cup of coffee. "How did you sleep, Mike?" she'd ask. "You were tossing and turning all night." And I'd have to look her in the eye, this good, decent woman, and lie. "Fine, honey. Just old bones, you know. The drive to Asheville did me in." I'd drink the coffee and it would taste like poison. It felt like I was betraying her with every sip. Every kind thing she did was another twist of the knife. She was so attentive. That was the worst part. She knew something was off. "Mike, you're not yourself," she said one afternoon, maybe 4 days later. I was standing at the living room window, just staring at the street. "You've been so quiet since you got back from Asheville. Did you and Ben have a fight?" I had to invent another lie building on the first one. "No, honey. Just his situation. It's bad. Makes you think you know about old pipes, about things breaking down." She put her hand on my arm. That warm, familiar hand. The hand I had held for 45 years. "Well, don't you worry. Our house is solid. You built it after all. Nothing is going to break down here." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her, "It's already broken, Diana. It's all broken." But I just nodded. "You're right, honey. It's solid." I spent those 2 weeks watching her. She was the victim here just as much as I was. Our son was using her. He was using her good name, her reputation, her face to do something. Something that required cash and envelopes at the Starlight Inn. And I couldn't tell her. How could I? How do you tell a 69-year-old grandmother that her only son is a criminal? How do you tell her he's put her in the middle of it, that her good name is probably on some document on some bank account she knows nothing about? I wasn't just hiding a secret from her. I was hiding a secret for her. I was trying to protect her. But by hiding the truth, I was lying to her too. I was just as bad as they were. Ben would call me usually in the middle of the day when Diana was at her garden club. "Mike," he'd whisper like he was in a spy movie. I'd have to walk out into the garage, closing the door behind me, pretending I was talking to a supplier. "I'm here, Ben. What do you got?" "I'm working on it, Mike," he'd say. This is deep. This Ms. D is a ghost. The name is fake. But the guys she's paying, they're not ghosts. They're all over the city. This is bigger than a motel parking lot. I need more time. Just act normal." Act normal. That was the hardest job I've ever had. Then came Sunday. The following Sunday. I couldn't avoid it. Diana insisted. "Mike, you need a good meal. Ryan and Leo are coming over. I'm making the roast." So I sat there. I sat at the head of my own table in my own house and I watched him. He walked in the perfect sun. He kissed his mother on the cheek. "Mom, the house smells amazing." He turned to me. "Dad, you feeling better? You had us worried. You've been quiet all week." I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to launch myself across the pot roast and grab him by his $1,000 polo shirt. I wanted to scream, "You're worried. You're worried. I know what you're doing. You sick twisted. I know you're using your mother. I know about Ms. D." My hands were gripping the armrests of my chair so hard my knuckles were white. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears. I'm a 70-year-old man. My heart isn't what it used to be. I was afraid I was going to have a stroke right there at the dinner table. Diana was serving the pot roast. She was smiling. The scene was perfect. A happy family. Ryan looked at me. "So," he said, taking a bite. "How was your trip to Asheville? You never really told us. Did you get old Ben's pipes fixed?" I stared at him. This hypocrisy. He was testing me. He was sitting there eating his mother's food in his father's house, and he was testing me. I just nodded. I had to swallow. My throat was dry. Yeah, Ryan, I said, and my voice sounded calm even to me. It was a tough job, real tough. But we got it done. Old Ben, he's lucky he has friends, right? Lucky he has people he can trust. I stared right at him. I put all the meaning I could into those last words. Ryan didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He just smiled, that slick, empty smile of his. He raised his glass of iced tea. Absolutely, he said. That's what family is for, Dad. Helping each other out, making sure everyone is taken care of. I almost choked on my food. I lived like that for 14 days. Every morning the guilt of lying to Diana. Every Sunday the rage of sitting across from Ryan. I was trapped. I was a 70-year-old man living in a house full of secrets, just waiting. Waiting for Ben's call. Waiting for the evidence. Waiting for the day the whole thing would finally explode. It was 2 days later. A Tuesday. The waiting was eating me alive. I was in the garage pretending to organize my toolbox for what felt like the 100th time. My hands were shaking. I'd snap at Diana for no reason. I'd apologize. I was a wreck. Diana was in the backyard humming, planting her azaleas. She was in her own peaceful world, completely innocent, while I was living in this private hell just feet away. My phone, which I now carried with me everywhere, even to the bathroom, buzzed in my pocket. My heart leaped into my throat. I fumbled for it. The screen read, Ben Carter. I looked through the garage window. Diana was on her knees digging in the dirt, her back to me. I stepped deeper into the shadows behind my workbench. I answered, Yeah. My voice was a croak. Mike. Ben's voice was low. All business. None of the usual joking. You alone. Yeah. I said, my voice barely a whisper. Diana's in the garden. What do you have? There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. I heard him sigh on the other end. Mike, he said, and his voice was gentle, which scared me more than anything. You need to sit down. I looked around the garage. There was nowhere to sit but an old dusty paint can. I leaned back against the workbench. My knees felt weak. I'm sitting, Ben. Just tell me. I found her, he said. Ms. D. Yeah, that was the easy part. The name was fake, of course. But the motel clerk, Brenda. She's got a memory like a steel trap. She remembered the taxi company. I tracked the driver. He's been picking Ms. D up from the same apartment complex for 6 months. Got the apartment number. My heart was hammering. Who is she, Ben? Her real name is Carol Jensen. The name meant nothing to me. Carol Jensen, a stranger. I felt a small, wild surge of hope. It was just a stranger, a random woman. Maybe this had nothing to do with Diana at all. Who is she, a bookie, some kind of drug dealer? No, Ben said. Nothing that simple. I ran her name Mike, Carol Jensen. She's 66 years old, used to be an actress, back in the late 80s, early 90s. An actress? I said, confused. What, like a movie star? No, nothing like that. Local stuff. Did some car dealership commercials here in Charlotte. Maybe a small part in a local theater production. A C-list, maybe even D-list actress who never made it. She's a nobody, Mike. A complete ghost for the last 20 years. An actress, I repeated, trying to make it make sense. Why would Ryan be mixed up with a washed-up actress? Because, Ben said, and I could hear the pity in his voice. She's in trouble. She's in deep, Mike. I ran her credit. She's got casino markers all over Atlantic City. Looks like she has, or had, a very bad gambling problem. She's got liens on her apartment. She's desperate for cash. A desperate actress. A sleazy motel. Envelopes of cash. My son. It still didn't fit. So Ryan is, what, paying her gambling debts? I don't get it, Ben. Why her? This was the moment. I knew instinctively that this was the answer I had been dreading. The air in the garage felt thick. Mike, Ben said quietly. After I got her name, I got her driver's license photo. And then I did what you asked. I compared it to the picture you sent me, the one of Diana. I closed my eyes. And Mike, it's her. It's the face. What? What do you mean? I stammered, even though I knew. I mean, it's uncanny, Mike. It's not just a resemblance. It's like they were separated at birth. The same facial structure, the same eyes, the same high cheekbones, the same chin. I'm telling you, Mike, put that cheap blonde wig and that trashy makeup on Diana, or take it off Carol Jensen, and you couldn't tell them apart from 10 feet away. The workbench felt like it was the only thing holding me up. My legs were gone. It was true. It was all true. My son, Ryan, hadn't just found a woman. He had hunted for her. He had found a desperate, broke old actress whose only remaining asset was that she had his mother's face. This wasn't an accident. This was a plan. A deliberate, sick, twisted plan. Mike? Ben's voice came through the phone, sounding far away. Mike, are you still there? Yeah, I whispered. I'm here. He hired her, didn't he, Ben? He hired a woman to play his mother. It looks that way, Mike. Ben said, his voice heavy. It looks exactly that way. I held the phone so tight my knuckles were white. Ben, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He hired her. He hired a woman to play his mother. Why, in God's name, why? Ben's voice on the other end was grim. He wasn't my old foreman anymore. He was a professional. Mike, he said, and I could hear him shuffling papers. You need to brace yourself, because this next part, this is the part that's hard to swallow. This is the part that makes it evil. I leaned back against the workbench in the garage. My hands were slick with sweat. I wasn't just a man in his garage. I was a man on the edge of a cliff, and Ben was about to tell me what was in the canyon below. I'm listening, Ben. Just tell me. I started digging into Ryan, like you asked. I got into his financials, as deep as I could legally go and maybe a little deeper. He paused. The kid is smart, Mike. Wicked smart. But he's dirty. Filthy. Dirty? I said. What are you talking about? He's a financial manager. He's a vice president at the bank. Yeah, Ben said, his voice laced with acid. He manages finances all right. Mostly his own. Illegally. You know your old industry, Mike. The construction world. You know how those big outfits are always looking to cut corners. Labor costs, insurance, taxes. I knew, God, I knew. I spent 45 years fighting against it. I saw companies, big ones, bring in undocumented crews, pay them cash under the table, work them 12-hour days with no overtime, no insurance, no safety gear. If a man got hurt, he just disappeared. They'd drop him at an emergency room and drive off. It was the dirtiest, ugliest side of the business. Well, Ben continued, your son, Ryan, he didn't see it as dirty. He saw it as an opportunity. My blood ran cold. What did he do, Ben? He set up a company, a shell corporation, an LLC registered 3 years ago. A company? What kind of company? A labor company, Ben said. A temp agency. On paper, they supply specialized construction crews to some of the biggest developers in Charlotte. Guys you used to compete against, Mike. Your old rivals. It was starting to make a horrible, sickening kind of sense. The motel. The cash. The 7 men. They weren't bikers. They were foremen. Crew chiefs. So, I said, thinking aloud, my voice trembling. He's running an off-the-books labor crew. He's paying them in cash. The cash I saw Ms. D handing out. Exactly, Ben said. The big developers pay Ryan's company millions, all legal, all above board, through checks and wire transfers for consulting or labor services. Ryan takes that clean money, washes it, pulls it out as untraceable cash, and then uses Ms. D to make the payroll drop at that dump of a motel. No taxes, no social security, no workers' comp. He pockets, I'm guessing, 40, maybe 50 cents on every dollar. It's a multi-million-dollar operation, Mike. It's tax evasion, it's money laundering, and it's felony labor exploitation, all rolled into one. I felt sick. My own son, my boy, doing the very thing I spent my whole career fighting against. But why? Carol Jensen, why the woman with Diana's face? Why go to all that trouble? Ben, I don't get it, I said. Why her? Why the look-alike? Ben went quiet. The silence on the phone was so heavy, so absolute, I thought he had hung up. Ben, Mike, he finally said, and his voice was so low, so full of pity, I almost couldn't hear him. That's the part you're not going to like. That's the part that makes this, well, there's no other word for it, Mike. It's monstrous. What is it, Ben? Just say it. I pulled the incorporation papers, Mike, for this shell company, this LLC. And, I said, my voice shaking. Is it in his name? No, Ben said. He's too smart for that. He's a ghost. His name isn't on a single document. Not one. Then whose name is it? Ben was quiet again. Mike, he said gently. What are your wife's initials, her full name? My blood turned to ice. It couldn't be. Diana, I whispered. Diana Sullivan, DS. The company is named DS Enterprises LLC, registered 3 years ago. I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry, my mind was short-circuiting. He named it after his mother as a sick joke. Worse, Mike. Ben's voice was hard now. He didn't just name it after her. He registered it to her. What? I'm looking at the paperwork right now. The founder, the president, the CEO, the sole signatory on all the corporate bank accounts. It's all one person. Diana Sullivan, 69 years old. Your address. Your home. No, I said. No, that's impossible. She would have to sign things. She would know. She would have told me. Would she? Ben asked. Or did she maybe ask her smart son, the financial manager, to help her with her retirement papers a few years back? Did she maybe give him her social security number, her date of birth, her driver's license? Maybe just to make a copy. I leaned my head against the cool concrete wall of the garage. I remembered it clearly. It was about 3 years ago, right after I retired. Diana was struggling with the paperwork for her 401k rollover. It was complicated, all these forms and tax codes. Ryan had come over. The perfect son. Don't worry, Mom, he'd said, smiling. This stuff is confusing. I do it every day. Just give me your documents. Your social security card, your license. I'll take care of it all for you. She had been so grateful, so relieved. She had kissed him on the cheek. He's such a good boy, Mike, she'd said to me that night. So smart, so helpful. I don't know what we'd do without him. He had stolen her identity. He stole her life, Mike, Ben said, as if he was reading my mind. He registered the company in her name. He opened the bank accounts in her name. And when the bank needed the president to come in and sign the papers, when the big developers wanted to meet Ms. Sullivan, he didn't send his 69-year-old mother. He sent his look-alike. He sent Carol Jensen. Ms. D. I understood. It all crashed down on me in one horrifying wave. My son had created a criminal empire, and he built a firewall, a human shield, and that human shield was his own mother. When this thing collapses, and it will collapse, when the IRS, when the Department of Labor, when the FBI finally connect the dots, they won't be coming for Ryan Sullivan. His name is nowhere. They will come to my house. They will break down my door, and they will put handcuffs on a 69-year-old grandmother. They will arrest Diana, all of his smart business school colleagues, all his golf buddies. They would see that the person running this massive illegal operation was Diana Sullivan, the church volunteer, the gardener. He wasn't just using her name. He was planning to send her to prison. He was willing to sacrifice his own mother to save himself. I think I was sick. I don't remember dropping the phone. I just remember staggering out of the garage into the bright sunlight of the backyard. I stumbled past the tomato plants over to the azalea bushes, his mother's bushes, and I bent over. I was sick. I held the phone so tight, my knuckles were white. Ben, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He hired her. He hired this Carol Jensen to be Diana. But for what, Ben? Just to sign papers. Why? Ben's voice on the other end was grim. He wasn't my old foreman anymore. He was a professional. Mike, he said, and I could hear him shuffling papers. You need to brace yourself, because this next part, this is the part that's hard to swallow. This is the part that makes it evil. I leaned back against the workbench in the garage. My hands were slick with sweat. I wasn't just a man in his garage. I was a man on the edge of a cliff, and Ben was about to tell me what was in the canyon below. I'm listening, Ben. Just tell me. I started digging into Ryan, like you asked. I got into his financials, as deep as I could legally go, and maybe a little deeper. He paused. The kid is smart, Mike. Wicked smart. But he's dirty. Filthy. Dirty, I said. What are you talking about? He's a financial manager. He's a vice president at the bank. Yeah, Ben said, his voice laced with acid. He manages finances all right, mostly his own, illegally. You know your old industry, Mike, the construction world. You know how those big outfits are always looking to cut corners. Labor costs, insurance, taxes. I knew. God, I knew. I spent 45 years fighting against it. I saw companies, big ones, bring in undocumented crews, pay them cash under the table, work them 12-hour days with no overtime, no insurance, no safety gear. If a man got hurt, he just disappeared. They'd drop him at an emergency room and drive off. It was the dirtiest, ugliest side of the business. Well, Ben continued, your son, Ryan, he didn't see it as dirty. He saw it as an opportunity. My blood ran cold. What did he do, Ben? He set up a company, a shell corporation, an LLC registered 3 years ago. A company. What kind of company? A labor company, Ben said. A temp agency. On paper, they supply specialized construction crews to some of the biggest developers in Charlotte. Guys you used to compete against, Mike. Your old rivals. It was starting to make a horrible, sickening kind of sense. The motel, the cash, the 7 men. They weren't bikers. They weren't drug dealers. They were foremen, their crew bosses, the middlemen. I knew these types. I'd seen them my whole life. The men who hang around the home improvement store parking lots at 5 in the morning, picking up day laborers. DS Enterprises, Ben explained, is supplying labor to these big construction sites. Hundreds of men, Mike, hundreds. But the sites would have records. They'd have to pay. That's the genius of it, Ben said, and I could hear the disgust in his voice. The big developers pay DS Enterprises millions of dollars. It's all legal, a check for labor services. That money goes right into the bank account that Diana Sullivan supposedly controls. And then Ryan pulls that money out, as cash, millions of dollars in cash. He gives the bag of cash to Ms. D, and she, the woman with your wife's face, drives to that motel. She meets those 7 foremen, and she hands them the white envelopes. And those foremen, they go back to the job sites, and they pay the crews. But why? Why all the trouble? Why not just pay them? Because Mike, Ben's voice was sharp, they're not paying them. Not really. These crews, they're ghosts. They're undocumented workers, Mike. Men who can't complain. Men who don't have a voice. I felt sick. They're not paying them minimum wage. They're paying them half that. Maybe less. They're not paying overtime for 12-hour days. They're not paying into Social Security. They're not paying into Medicare. And Mike, they are not paying for insurance. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the concrete floor of the garage. I couldn't hold it. I bent over my hands on my knees. Insurance. In my world. In construction. Insurance is everything. It's the one thing you don't mess with. It's the difference between a man losing a finger and a man losing his house. It's the difference between a man getting a new leg or getting a $5 a week disability check. My son Ryan, the man I sent to college, was running crews of hundreds of men, hundreds, on dangerous job sites with no insurance. He wasn't just a white-collar criminal. He wasn't just a tax cheat. He was a monster. I picked the phone back up. Ben, I said, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't felt in 40 years. He's risking. If one of those men falls, he's not just risking it, Mike, Ben said. He's counting on it. They're invisible. If a man falls off a scaffold, he's not an employee. He doesn't exist. The foreman just drives him to the emergency room, drops him at the curb, and drives away. No report, no claim, no cost. It's pure, cold profit. And Ryan, I said, the final horrible piece clicking into place. He's clean. His name is nowhere. Nowhere, Ben confirmed. It's a multi-million-dollar operation, Mike. Tax evasion, money laundering, felony labor exploitation. All rolled into one. And when this thing collapses, and it will collapse, when the IRS, when the Department of Labor, when the FBI finally connect the dots, they won't be coming for Ryan Sullivan. They will come to your house. They will break down your door. And they will put handcuffs on a 69-year-old grandmother. They will arrest Diana. I remembered. God, I remembered. I remembered it clearly. It was about 3 years ago, right after I retired. Diana was struggling with the paperwork for her 401k rollover. It was complicated, all these forms and tax codes. Ryan had come over. The perfect son. Don't worry, Mom, he'd said, smiling. This stuff is confusing. I do it every day. Just give me your documents, your Social Security card, your license. I'll take care of it all for you. She had been so grateful, so relieved. She had kissed him on the cheek. He's such a good boy, Mike, she'd said to me that night. So smart, so helpful. I don't know what we'd do without him. He had stolen her identity. He stole her life, Mike, Ben said, as if he was reading my mind. He registered the company in her name. He opened the bank accounts in her name. And when the bank needed the president to come in and sign the papers, when the big developers wanted to meet Ms. Sullivan, he didn't send his 69-year-old mother. He sent his lookalike. He sent Carol Jensen. Ms. D. That's why he was so angry, I whispered. Leo's call. It wasn't about an affair. He was panicked. He was terrified that Leo seeing Ms. D would lead me to start digging. He was afraid I would be the one to expose him and bring the whole thing down on his mother's head. And Diana? I said, my voice breaking. That phone call at 2 a.m., she knows. She's covering for him. I don't think she knows what she's covering for Mike, Ben said, his voice a little softer. I think she's just a mother. I think Ryan fed her a story. Told her he was in a little trouble, that he was trying to protect his job. He probably scared her. He used her. He used her love for him to make her lie to you. He used her trust to keep you in the dark. He built a human shield. And he used his own mother. I stumbled out of the garage into the bright sunlight. I saw Diana. She was still in the garden. She was smiling, humming, watering her roses. She had no idea. She had no idea that our son, our boy, had already built her a prison cell. Ben's final report landed on my kitchen table like a tombstone. It was a thick 3-ring binder, not a few flimsy papers. It was filled with bank statements, incorporation documents, surveillance photos of Carol Jensen, Ms. D, going in and out of Ryan's bank wearing that stupid blonde wig. It had timelines. It had account numbers. It had copies of checks from the construction companies made out to DS Enterprises. It was the blueprints to my son's criminal empire. And the architect was Ryan. The fall guy was his mother. I sat there for hours just staring at it. The sun went down. The kitchen got dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I finally had it. The truth. The facts. The hard, cold steel and concrete proof I had been looking for. And I realized I had a choice. A terrible, impossible choice. I could pick up the phone. I could call the FBI. I could call the IRS. I could hand them this binder. I could give them Ben's report. And I could stop him. I could stop Ryan. I could put an end to this entire sick operation. I could bring him to justice. My son, the criminal, would go to prison for a long, long time. He would pay for what he did. But what would that do the moment I make that call? The name DS Enterprises goes public. The name Diana Sullivan goes public. The FBI wouldn't just arrest Ryan. They would have to arrest her. She is the president. She is the CEO. Her name is on every account. Her signature, or a forgery of it, is on every document. I could just see it. The news vans parked on our quiet suburban street. The cameras. The neighbors peering through their curtains. And Diana. My 69-year-old wife who spends her days planting flowers, being walked out of our home, in handcuffs. Her name, her good name, the reputation she spent her entire life building in this community, it would be destroyed. It would be gone, in an instant. She would be known as the old woman who ran an illegal labor racket, the grandmother who laundered money. Even if I could prove she was innocent, even if I could prove Ryan stole her identity, the mud would never wash off. She would be humiliated. Her life would be over. Her golden years, the peace she deserved, would be a living hell of lawyers and courtrooms and public shame. I was trapped. This was Ryan's true evil genius. He hadn't just used his mother as a shield. He had made her a hostage. I couldn't bring my son to justice without destroying my wife, and I couldn't protect my wife without letting my son, this monster, get away with it. What do you do? What in God's name do you do? Do you sacrifice your son to save your wife, or do you sacrifice your wife to save your son? I sat there in the dark, a 70-year-old man, a builder who had solved problems his whole life. And I had no idea how to fix this. I had no idea what to do. I sat in the dark kitchen for, I don't know how long, hours. I realized there was no good choice. There was just a bad choice and a worse one. If I called the FBI, I would destroy my wife. If I did nothing, I would let my son destroy countless other lives. And he would eventually get caught, and he would still destroy my wife. There was only one path. One narrow, dark path. I couldn't go to the law. Not yet. I had to go to the criminal. I had to confront Ryan. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed Diana there. I needed her to see the man she was protecting. I needed her to see the truth with her own eyes. And I needed Leo. He was the one who started this. He was the one who saw the truth. I waited until Sunday. The whole weekend was a blur. I was quiet. I was cold. Diana kept asking me what was wrong. "Mike, you're scaring me. Are you sick?" "No, honey," I told her. "I'm just thinking. We need to talk. The whole family. Tonight. For dinner." "Dinner? Oh, well, I can make a roast." "No," I said. "No roast, just pizza. Something simple. I need everyone here. 7 p.m. She was confused, but she agreed. She called Ryan. I called Leo. I told him, "Leo, I need you here tonight. It's about what you saw. It's important. And Leo, don't tell your father I called you." 7 p.m. They arrived. Ryan walked in first. All smiles, all polish. "Hey, Dad, a Sunday pizza night. What's the occasion?" He was relaxed. He thought he was safe. He thought I was just the trusting old fool. Diana was hovering, wringing her hands, sensing my mood. "Mike, what is this all about?" Leo came in last, looking nervous. He looked at me, then at his father, then at his grandmother. "Sit down," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded hard, like gravel, like the man I used to be on the job site. They all sat at the kitchen table. Diana, Ryan, Leo, my family, my broken lying family. Ryan was still smiling, but it was getting tight at the edges. "Okay, Dad, you're scaring Mom. What's going on?" I didn't look at him. I looked at my grandson. "Leo," I said, "I called this meeting because I owe you an apology." Diana looked confused. "Ryan." Ryan went completely still. His smile vanished. Leo just stared at me. "Grandpa?" "I'm sorry, son," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I told you that you were just tired, that you were seeing things." I took a deep breath. This was it. "You were right, Leo. I looked into it. I went to the Starlight Inn myself." "Mike!" Diana gasped. "You did what? Why would you do that?" "And I saw her too, Leo," I continued. My eyes locked on my grandson. "I saw Ms. D." "Ms. D." Diana's voice was a confused echo. "Mike, what are you talking about? What is going on?" I turned my head, slowly, and I looked at my son. Ryan was frozen. He wasn't breathing. He was a statue. His face had gone white. Not just pale. White. Like drywall. He was staring at me with a look of pure, unadulterated terror. He knew. In that instant, he knew the game was over. "You don't know who Ms. D is, Diana?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Are you sure? Are you sure you've never heard that name?" "No," she said, her voice rising in panic. I don't, Mike, you're frightening me. What is this? This, Mo, I said, and I reached under the table. I grabbed the thick 3-ring binder that Ben Carter had given me. I put it on the table. It made a loud, heavy final thud. This is Ms. D, I said. I opened it. I turned it around. The first page was a photograph, a surveillance photo. The woman in the blonde wig and the leopard print coat standing in the motel parking lot. Diana just stared at it. My God, she whispered. Mike, that woman, she looks just like me. Yes, I said. She does. Doesn't she, Ryan? Ryan didn't move. He didn't speak. He was paralyzed. Her name, I said, flipping the page, is Carol Jensen. She's a 66-year-old failed actress with a severe gambling problem. And she's been getting paid a lot of money to walk around town pretending to be you, Diana. Diana's hand flew to her mouth. Pretending to be me, but why, who? I didn't answer. I just kept my eyes on my son. He's not stupid, Mom, I said, my voice cold. My son is a very, very smart man. He knew he couldn't use you to do his dirty work. You'd ask too many questions. So he went out. And he hired you. He found your double. Mike, what dirty work? Diana was crying now, tears of pure confusion and fear. Ryan, what is your father talking about? Ryan still couldn't speak. He just stared at the binder. So I told her. I'm talking about this honey, I said, and I flipped the page again. It was a copy of the incorporation document. It's a company, Diana. A very successful company, apparently. It's called DS Enterprises. Does that sound familiar? She shook her head, sobbing. No, it should, I said. Because DS stands for Diana Sullivan. And this company, this multi-million-dollar company, is in your name. You are the president, Diana. You are the CEO. You are the sole signatory on all the bank accounts. According to the state of North Carolina, you are the boss. That's not possible, she cried. I never signed anything. Ryan, tell him this is a mistake. Ryan just shuddered, a long, slow shudder. He can't tell me it's a mistake, honey, I said, my voice breaking, because he's the one who did it. He stole your identity, Diana. Remember 3 years ago when he helped you with your retirement paperwork? When you gave him your social security card, your driver's license, you thought he was being a good son. He was building a criminal enterprise, and he was using you as the fall guy. I didn't look at Ryan. I couldn't. I looked at Diana. Her face was a mask of pure, uncomprehending horror. Sit down, Diana, I said, my voice softer now. You need to hear this. I opened the binder. That thick, terrible binder. I had a friend look into it, I said. I slid the first photo across the table. It was the surveillance shot of the black BMW, the tinted window down. Ryan, in his expensive suit, was handing the heavy bag to Ms. D, the woman with Diana's face. Diana stared at it. That's Ryan's car, she whispered. But who is that woman? She looks just like you. I finished for her. Her name is Carol Jensen, a broke actress, and she's been hired to be you. I flipped the page. I slid the next document in front of her. It was the Articles of Incorporation, the state filing. DS Enterprises, LLC, I said, my finger jabbing the paper. President Diana Sullivan, CEO Diana Sullivan, address our home, social security number. I watched her eyes scan the page. I watched the blood drain from her face. Mike, she whispered, her hands trembling. I don't I don't understand. My name. My name is on that. I. I never. I turned to Ryan. His face was gray. He looked small. He looked like the monster he was. What did you do to your mother? I said, my voice low and dangerous. Mom. Ryan stammered, his voice cracking. I can explain. It's just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I slammed my hand on the table. The pizza boxes jumped. You call this a misunderstanding? I'm going to tell you what this is. And I told her. I told Diana everything. I told her how Ryan had stolen her identity, her social security number, her date of birth, all to create a shell company, a company in her name. I told her about the business, how he was supplying hundreds of undocumented non-union laborers to the biggest construction sites in Charlotte. I told her about the motel, about the cash, about how the big companies paid DS Enterprises millions of dollars, all of it legal, all of it going into her bank accounts, and how Ryan was pulling it out as cash, paying those men under the table, stealing from the government, stealing from those poor workers. He's not just a tax cheat, Diana, I said, my voice breaking. He's risking lives. There's no insurance, no workers' comp. If one of those men gets hurt, he's a ghost. And the woman paying them, the woman they all think is the boss, she has your face. I let that sink in. When this blows up, honey, I said, my voice finally breaking. When the IRS comes, when the FBI comes, they're not coming for him. He's a ghost. His name is nowhere. They are coming for you, Diana. They are coming for the president and CEO. They are coming to arrest a 69-year-old grandmother. Diana made a sound, a small strangled gasp. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She slumped. She collapsed right there at the table, just gone. Mom! Ryan screamed, jumping up. Diana! I rushed to her, catching her before she hit the floor. She had fainted, completely passed out. Leo, call 911! I yelled. Now! Leo was already on his phone, his face pale, his hands shaking. Ryan just stood there, paralyzed, looking at his mother limp in my arms. Dad, he stammered. I didn't mean, you didn't mean to, Leo suddenly screamed, dropping his phone. His voice, which had been so small and scared, was now filled with a rage I had never heard. You lied. That's why you yelled at me. You knew. You knew it was true. You let me think I was crazy. You did this to Grandma. Leo, be quiet, Ryan whispered, his eyes wide. You don't understand. I understand, Leo yelled, tears streaming down his face. You're a criminal, and you used her. You used all of us. And as I held my unconscious wife in my arms, listening to my grandson scream the truth at my son, I knew my family was not just broken. It was over. The paramedics came. They were in and out. Diana. She refused to go to the hospital. Her blood pressure was high, but she was lucid. Too lucid. After they left, the house was silent. Leo was sitting on the stairs, his head in his hands. Diana was sitting at the kitchen table. She was staring at the binder, the one I had opened, the one that was still open to the incorporation papers. I had made her a cup of hot tea. She hadn't touched it. Ryan was pacing back and forth in the living room, just muttering to himself, panicked. I'm ruined. It's over. Finally, Diana looked up. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Leo. She looked at our son. And the look on her face, I had known this woman for 45 years. I had seen her angry. I had seen her sad. I had seen her disappointed. I had never, ever seen this. It was pure disgust. pure, absolute disgust. It was the look you give something you find crawling on your food. It was a look of total revulsion. "You," she said. Her voice was flat. "Dead. You used me." Ryan stopped pacing. He looked at her, his eyes wide, desperate. Mom, please. It's not what it looks like. I can explain. I was trying to protect. Diana's voice was sharp now. It cut right through his stuttering. Protect. You stole from me. You stole me. You stole my name. My life, my social security number. The number I gave you. The number I trusted you with when you said you were helping me with my retirement. She stood up slowly. All those years I was so proud of you. My son, the financial manager. My son, the vice president. My son, he's so smart, he helps me with my paperwork. She walked toward him. And Ryan, my son, this 45-year-old high-powered executive, he actually took a step back. He was terrified of her. All that time, she whispered, you were building this filth. You were using your mother, your 69-year-old mother, as a shield. Mom, please, I was in trouble, he finally burst out. I owed people money. Bad people. They were threatening me. This was the only way I did it, to protect you. To protect the family. To protect us. Diana let out a laugh. It was a horrible sound. It wasn't a laugh. It was the sound of something breaking. You sacrificed us. You put my name on a criminal enterprise. You were going to let me go to prison for you. She stopped right in front of him. You let me lie to your father. That night, that 2 a.m. phone call, you made me lie to him. You made me use his trust, his love for me to cover your tracks. She looked at him, her eyes burning. You didn't just destroy me, Ryan. You destroyed us. You destroyed this entire family. You destroyed everything. Ryan, he collapsed. It wasn't slow. It was like his strings were cut. He just fell apart. He crumpled onto the living room floor, sobbing. Not quiet tears. Loud, ugly, desperate sobs. The sobs of a man who has just lost everything and knows it. I can fix it, he cried, his voice muffled by the carpet. Mom, I can fix it. I'll shut it down. I'll shut down the company. I'll give the money back. He looked up, his face a mess of tears and snot. He was grabbing at her robe. We can just pretend this never happened. I'll stop, I promise. I'll stop right now. We don't have to tell anyone. Right, Dad? He looked at me, pleading. We can just burn the binder. Ben works for you. He'll be quiet. We can just make it go away. He was still doing it. After all of this, after his mother fainted, after his son exposed him, he was still trying to find a way to lie, to cover it up. He didn't get it. He didn't get that it was over. I looked at Diana. Her face was like stone. The disgust was gone. It was just empty. She looked at the man sobbing on her floor. Her son. You? She said, her voice shaking. You have destroyed my life. You have ruined me. Ryan panicked, scrambling to his feet. No, I can fix it. I'll close the accounts. I'll tell them. I'll tell them it was all a mistake. We can fix this, Mom. We can. He was still trying to lie. He was still trying to find a way out. He scrambled to his feet, his face a mess of tears and panic. "No, Mom, Dad, I can fix this. I'll close the accounts. I'll shut it all down. I'll tell them it was all a mistake. We can fix this, Mom, we can." He was looking at Diana, not me. He knew. He had always known. She was his shield. She was the one who would protect him. He was still trying to manipulate her, still trying to pull her back in. He thought this was just a family argument. I stepped between them. I physically put my body between my son and my wife. "It's too late for that, Ryan," I said. My voice, it didn't even sound like my own. It was cold. It was hard. It was the voice I used on job sites, the one I used right before I fired a man. It was the voice of a man who was done. "What? No," he stammered. "It's not, we can burn the binder. We can call Ben. Ben works for you, Dad. He'll be quiet. We can just make it go away." I almost laughed. It was a horrible, dry sound. "Make it go away. You think this is just a bad report card you can hide? You think you can just burn the evidence?" I tapped the thick 3-ring binder on the table. The thud was the only sound in the room. "This isn't the file, Ryan. This is a copy. Ben Carter is a professional. He sent another copy to my lawyer the second he finished it. A lawyer you don't know. A lawyer who is waiting for my call. It's already over. The evidence is safe." Ryan's face, the color it drained out of it. He finally understood. He was trapped. He wasn't talking to his trusting dad. He was talking to me. "So," I said, walking around the table until I was standing right in front of him. "Here is what happens now. I am giving you 2 choices, and you are going to make a decision. Right here. Tonight." Diana was watching, her hand over her mouth, silent. Leo was still on the stairs, frozen. "Choice number 1, I said, and I held up one finger. "You do nothing. You keep lying. You keep pleading. You keep telling me how you can fix it. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. sharp, I am going to take your mother, your innocent mother who you sacrificed, and we are going to walk into the federal building downtown. We are going to walk into the FBI office, and I am going to hand them this binder. I am going to tell them everything." I leaned in closer. My voice was just a whisper, but it was harder than steel. "And you know what they'll do, Ryan? They will arrest her. They will put your 69-year-old mother in handcuffs. Her name, Diana Sullivan, will be on the front page of every newspaper all over the news as the head of a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. She will be humiliated. She will be bankrupted. She will be destroyed. And she will probably spend the rest of her life in a federal prison. All for you. And you'll go to prison too. 20 years, maybe more. But you will take your mother down with you. That is choice 1. Ryan was shaking his head, just whispering, "No, no, no. Choice number 2. I said, my voice like ice. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my cell phone, and slid it across the kitchen table. It stopped right in front of him. "You pick up that phone. Right now. You call your lawyer. You tell him you are turning yourself in, and tomorrow morning you, alone, will walk into that same FBI office. You will confess, Ryan. You will tell them everything." He stared at the phone, his eyes wide with a terror I had never seen. "You will tell them that you are the mastermind. You will tell them about the labor. You will tell them about the tax evasion. You will tell them about the money laundering. And then, you will tell them the most important part." I leaned down until my face was just inches from his. "You will tell them that your mother, Diana Sullivan, was your first victim. You will tell them you stole her identity. You will tell them you used her social security number without her knowledge. You will tell them she knew nothing. You will make them believe it. You will hand them Carol Jensen. You will give them everything they need to clear your mother's name. Completely. You will take the fall, Ryan, all of it, 100%. You will go to prison. You will lose your license, your reputation, your house, your life. But your mother will be safe. She will be cleared. Her name will be clean. I stood up straight. So you have to choose, son, I said, pushing the phone an inch closer to his trembling hand. Who is it going to be? Are you going to sacrifice your mother to save yourself, or are you, for the one time in your miserable, selfish life, going to do the right thing and sacrifice yourself to save her? I looked at Diana. She was staring at Ryan, her face wet with silent tears. She wasn't just his mother anymore. She was his victim, and she was waiting. I looked at Leo, still on the stairs watching his father, his hero completely broken. The choice is yours, Ryan, I said. Ruin her, or save her. You have 10 seconds to pick up that phone. Ryan just stared at the phone. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a desperate, trapped animal fear. He looked at his mother, my Diana, who was standing there, her face a mask of stone, her eyes dead, just waiting. He looked at Leo on the stairs, who was watching him with pure, cold contempt. He had nowhere to run, no more lies to tell, no one to shield him. He knew, he finally knew, that his mother's love, the love he had used as a weapon and a shield, was gone, replaced by that awful, empty disgust. And he broke. The arrogance, the Polish, the slick financial manager, it all evaporated. He just crumpled. He sank to his knees by the kitchen table. He put his head down on the cheap wood next to the binder that had destroyed him, and he sobbed. It was a terrible sound. It was the sound of a 45-year-old man, a man who had everything, realizing he had just lost it all. He wept these horrible, gut-wrenching sobs of pure self-destruction. Diana didn't move. She didn't go to him. She didn't comfort him. She just watched. He cried for a long time. Finally, his hand, trembling, slid across the table. He fumbled for the phone. His fingers were shaking so badly, he almost dropped it. He picked it up. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at his mother. He just stared at the black screen, and with a final shuddering breath, he unlocked it, and he dialed his lawyer. That was 6 months ago. Ryan did what I told him. He confessed. He told them everything. The shell company, the tax evasion, the money laundering, the undocumented workers. He gave them the names of the construction companies he was working with. He gave them Carol Jensen. But most importantly, he gave them the truth about his mother. He testified under oath that he had stolen her identity, that he had used her retirement paperwork, that she was his first and most important victim, that she knew nothing, absolutely nothing, because he confessed, because he cooperated fully and turned in his associates. They gave him a deal. Ryan was sentenced to 7 years in a federal prison. He's up at the facility in Butner right now. And Diana, my Diana, was completely, totally, and publicly exonerated. The U.S. Attorney's Office issued a formal statement naming her as a victim of aggravated identity theft at the hands of her own son. She's safe. Her name is clear. That was all that mattered. Our family is a different story. It's broken. There's a silence in our house now that wasn't there before. Diana. She's not the same. She's sadder. She's harder. The woman who baked pies and laughed at Jeopardy. She's gone. She's still here, but the light went out of her. How can you recover from that? knowing your only child was willing to send you to prison, to save himself. We're trying. We're trying to heal, we talk, we sit in the garden. But it's hard. And Leo, our grandson, the kid who started all this just by doing his job, he's here with us most of the time. He moved into our guest room. He says he can't look at his father's house. He can't. He can't stand the memory. He's a good kid. He's quiet. He's dealing with a betrayal that no 17-year-old should ever have to face. I sit with him sometimes. We watch Jeopardy. But it's not the same. I lost my son. I know he's alive. I know he's in prison. But the boy I raised, the man I was proud of, he's gone forever. I sacrificed him. I had to. I had to destroy my son, to save my wife, and all of it, this entire nightmare, this tragedy. All of it happened because my grandson on a Friday night delivered a bag of fast food to the wrong place at the right time. My name is Michael Sullivan, and I learned the hardest lesson of my life at 70 years old. You think you know the people you love. You spend 50 years building a life. You build a home. You raise a son. You trust them. You think your foundation is solid, built on rock. But I learned that the rot, the real terrible rot, isn't always something you can see. It can grow right inside your own walls, hidden behind the perfect smile of the son you were so proud of. My lesson is this: trust your gut. I spent my whole life believing in what my eyes could see. Steel, concrete, blueprints. When I followed Diana, I saw her planting flowers. I saw her knitting. My eyes told me she was innocent, and I almost believed them. I almost convinced myself I was just a crazy, paranoid old man. If I had let it go, if I had ignored that splinter of doubt, my wife, my innocent Diana, would be facing a federal indictment right now. She would be paying the price for our son's crimes. Sometimes the truth isn't what you see, it's what you feel. When your gut tells you something is wrong, even if it seems impossible, even if the person you love is sitting right next to you, listen to that feeling. Don't ignore the crack in the foundation. Look deeper. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't an easy one to tell. If you have ever felt that sting of betrayal from someone you trusted with your entire life, please hit that like button. It helps an old man to know he's not alone in this. And tell me in the comments, what city are you watching this from tonight? And have you ever had that feeling, that gut feeling that something was terribly wrong, even when everyone and everything was telling you that you were the crazy one? I read every single one. Please subscribe to the channel. My story, it's over now. But there are other stories to tell. Thank you.